Oh, I know what I'm wearing. How do I take that off?
So hey everybody, um, we already started discussing on when and how we're going to do the 2.1 release. So I think we'll just pick up with that discussion right away once Justin has picked his gear.
Yeah, so I'm a cheerio, governor. I'm in lovely England right now, and we were going to start talking about CanJS 2.1 and what we're going to do for that. So I was just talking about Curtis, what issues, the big issues that are left, because we're really close to finishing it. Curtis, do you know like the big ones? Can you kind of go over them?
Yeah, let me quickly share my screen. Okay, so there are no real big ones left. The big ones were stash and define and can route map, and all those are done for the most part. So the few that we do have, we had one for push state, which was an issue with Firefox on Linux, and I don't actually think I think we might defer this.
What's the issue?
After loading his app, if he waits a couple seconds, push state stops working. I can't reproduce it at all in any environment. But the fix that he suggested was moving set state out of, like not wrapping push state and replace state. Because we wrap it to call set state, so we keep everything in sync.
We need to wrap that.
Right, we definitely need to.
Okay.
So that's not going to work. And also, if you use any library that calls set state or push state, or you do it yourself, your observe for route will get out of date because we're not calling set state anymore. So I don't think. First of all, I can't reproduce the issue, and the second, the fix isn't going to work now because we have a lot more logic in those wrapped native methods. That's one that's still open, but I think we'll probably defer.
I know I have to finish documenting the can mustache and CanJS change, just so everybody understands what that is. You don't need. We're deprecating can view mustache, can view EJS, can view stash, and they're all moving to can stash, can EJS, can mustache. I have to make that documentation change. It'll still work, still backwards compatible, but just making them there so it's a little easier to call, and our documentation will be kind of more in line. I think that you don't have to find those methods through can view, and then there's these other can EJS and can mustache places. It's all together.
So a couple more that are here. Justin, I think you've got a pull request here to fix it. I think there are some JS hint issues. That's 744, where cannot read property length of undefined. It's with list expandos.
Yeah, I'll fix the lint, and it should work.
Another one open is a pretty old one, but it's the can control route calling back events after the control is destroyed. And we thought maybe jQuery was cloning the handlers, and but we haven't really looked into that, so I'm not sure how high of a priority that one is.
Not super high. I mean, that one's been around forever, and no one else has been like, oh yeah, me too. And can route people really shouldn't be using anyways, or they can control route plugin.
Okay, and there are two more. One is the can view docs are behaving very weirdly. A lot of the examples aren't working, just in the can view section. I think Brian was looking at that a little bit last night. I'm not sure if he
didn't make any progress on it yet. The weird thing is that can you pull it up, Chris?
Oh, a can view.
No, just pull up the docs, yeah.
Well, that one's really messed up.
Yeah, not that one. I was going to work on that too, but just didn't get to that
I
yet.
think bindings was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So bindings and then the can events and can value both have demos. But what's weird is that the 2.1 docs work with this.
But wait, by the way, David, you can control like which camera the is being shown, like to the kind of anybody who's watching on YouTube. If you click on
Yeah,
like.
I think I am showing Curtis's screen right now.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's
I
a
hope I am.
issue, but what's weird is that every other demo works in both places. So I'm not sure why. So I think that's going to break once we go to once we deploy 2.1. The same problem will probably the same path.
Assign that to me, Curtis. I'll take a look at it.
Okay. And one of the last higher priority ones was, I think this was to do wildcards and define. Is that what this is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that got put into the, I know there are a ton of PRs around define. I'm not sure exactly what was in all those.
I don't think this is supported yet.
No, it's not. Yeah, define doesn't really work on lists yet at all. I don't know if that's something we need to do. It'd be nice for 2.1, of course, but because lists are kind of different. Like define, you typically, or for a list, you typically have the same type of items in the list. So you really just want to be able to provide the type of map in the list, and that's all you normally need to be done. Needs to be done. I think we're probably safe not having define, because it's likely that although there would be a serialize, which would be nice, a lot of times with a map you'd want things that are, or a list, you'd want things like when something is inserted versus removed. There's hooks for that, which is a little bit different than the hooks for like an individual property being set. So I think we could probably postpone this. Yay!
Okay, deferred. So the rest of the stuff that we had open and marked for 2.1 were all really minor. So I can go back through those and see if there are any pull requests open, and if not, I guess we can just defer the rest.
Okay, yeah, I think we can do it, because I'd really like to get it done today so that next week, done and out, so next week we can release the blog articles and that kind of thing.
Now these minor ones could go in a patch release as well. I mean, they're really, really minor issues. Yeah. So other than that, I'm working on making it pass in IE. There's a couple things around stash that I need to fix, particularly with inner HTML and white space, which is always fun to track down. But once that's done, everything else passes in IE 8 and up.
Awesome work, Curtis. Cool. So just for anybody who is watching, the big things in 2.1 are, I think there's an article that Matt might be able to articulate ones that I forget. The define plugin, which is going to let you better articulate the behavior of properties on a CAN map. Things like, if you can do getter setters, you can say it has this type, you can give it a default property, and you can give it tell it how to serialize itself. It's really a combination of the old attributes plugin, the getter setter plugin. In some ways, like how you can define computes as properties. That's really what get is. And a bunch of other things, but just done way better. This will probably find its way in core with 2.2. The next thing that's really cool is Stash. Stash it's like CAN. Oh yeah, if you want to click on it, awesome. Stash is just like Mustache, or mostly like Mustache in terms of its syntax, except that it uses document fragments internally to be much, much faster in terms of rendering and things like that. So there is like the spinning circle demo somewhere, and that's like 1.8 times faster with Stash. There are a few API changes. One is going to be that if you're passing values from to a component from Stash's scope, you have to wrap that with a single curly brace, which that kind of reminds me that is not fully documented yet. So I'll make that as a note to myself to get to. And then the other thing is helpers. Some helpers might have to change because previously in CanMustache, all helpers were returning a string. Helpers now return elements and document fragments. So you might have to change your helpers, but if you were just doing things like returning the result of options.fn, you won't have to change any of your helpers. But Stash should improve performance considerably for most web applications. And in line with improving performance, the next big change is there's lazy bubbling. Yeah. So what lazy bubbling is previously, if you listen to any event at all on a CAN map, that map would bubble all of its events up to any parent, and it would set up bindings on kind of its children to make sure that its children bubble up to it. Now, unless you listen to change explicitly or a dot, you listen to like foo.bar as an event, you will not set up bubbling. So the apps will run much, much faster, because if you had something like a list and you had items inside that list, if every time an item's value changed, that would produce like 2 or 3 events, which is actually maybe like 4 events. It would produce the named event on the item, the change event on the item, and then that would bubble up and produce a named event on the list and a change event on the list. This will cut in half the number of events produced, which that's some of the most expensive stuff that's happening whenever you change a value. So big performance gain there. The next thing that's really nice is we also made lazy map and lazy list, and those things basically are faster to initialize in some circumstances, lists and maps. If you have like a very big object, but you're not immediately reading every single property or setting up a binding on every single property, that will hopefully be much faster for you. Trying to think any other big features I'm missing, Matt?
Yeah, there's several. Hold on, let me see. List promises.
Oh yeah, list promises. Those are really cool. Hopefully you get the latest. This isn't the latest docs. Well, anyways, show the HTML because that's the cool part of list promises.
Yeah.
So list promises. Here you can see in this page I have like if items is resolved, then show the items. Otherwise, if it isn't resolved, show loading. The full demo page has a lot better docs, but basically what this allows you to do is if you get like a list from CAN model, or you're just creating your own list with like passing it deferred, you can know if that deferred has resolved or erred or been rejected. Which is great for solving the extremely common pattern of, okay, I've got a list that I want to show. I want to show it a spinner while it's loading. Once it's loaded, I need to be able to show a message saying there are 0 items if there are 0, or there's a lot of items if show the items if you need to show them. And then also if there's an error, I want to be able to show an error. The list promise API allows you to load a list with a promise and then pass that list to your template, even if the list hasn't loaded, and hit all of those cases that you normally need to hit with loading data. So it's really convenient.
I really like the demo you did with this plus define, because they kind of work well together. You kind of just set up your world, and then you don't have to. The app just kind of like does itself,
Yeah, let me show that
Mark,
real quick with let me show that demo real quick. Oh,
there's no need for like, you don't have to do like can click. You don't have to listen for events. It just kind of works.
yeah. So what was that? That's going to be an list
David, can you switch to
promise.
Dustin so it's displaying his screen instead of Curtis?
So let me know when it's on mine. Am I good to go?
David? David?
Yeah, I did switch it. Sorry, it should be fine.
Okay.
Okay, cool. All right, so let me show this example. So this is the, let me, maybe I actually have this checked out. This is going to be CanJS.com can list promise.html. All right, so it shows loading. Then I can click between educational, shows loading, then shows educational links. Then empty. This is an empty list of things, and I have missing. Whoops. So I have another meeting to go to in 10 minutes. Let me bring that back. So the state of my app is really this, what I kind of list type I've selected, and then the actual items that should be in the list. And this is simulating like getting a 404. Like that type of list doesn't exist. So the code for this, the setup code is create a fixture to list sites. And it looks for a type query part of the query string, and if it's fun, it returns some fun links. Educational, returns some educational links. If it gets type missing, it's going to give me a 404, and if it gets anything else, it's just going to return empty. My component scope is going to define essentially the view model for my page, and as I said, our kind of page's state is a type with, I want just it to have a default value of fun. And then I want items. I want the items to be a list, a site list, that depending on what type is, it's going to be that type of, or it's going to go, when type changes, it's going to go get those new types, and, or sorry, those new sites based on the type, and always kind of keep a list that, it kind of keeps it's like a getter. When this type value changes here, it's going to update and maintain its site list, a list of sites basically. So what define does here is it says, hey, the initial value for the items property of the scope, I want to be a new instance of site list. And then I can define a getter that basically will be called, it's like kind of a compute, but it's a compute called with its initial value in this case. So it's going to be called with the new site list, which is initially going to be empty. And it's going to read the type property and then load all sites with that, and then replace that kind of its current value, the items in the current items list, with those new items. It's going to pass it a deferred, which will eventually update its items. And return, essentially we're always returning the same value. So actually items itself, the items object, the list, will never change. We're always returning the same value, the same instance that we created right as this component was created. But we're replacing its items with a new list every time the type changes here. Hopefully that makes sense. This is kind of a complex example. But once you have that, now I have this really nice kind of view model to work from. I can cross-bind the select to the type, right? So when the type changes, this changes, and when these change, it changes the type. And because changing the type will update items, right? Update the site list, its values, and the deferred that's inside there, I have this really easy way of hitting all of those like 4 cases of showing a list, right? while the list is loading, the items will be pending, and I can show loading. When the items are resolved, then are there items? If there are items, I'm going to list each item. And if there are not items, I'm going to show no items. And then if there's an error and the list is rejected, the deferred that we passed to replace is rejected, then we'll get this items rejected, and it'll stack on as like an expando property the reason it was rejected. So we can just display the reason right here. I kind of messed up my spacing, but items.reason, because this is an AJAX request, jQuery puts, jQuery will reject, model will reject with the XHR object, the jQuery XHR object, which is items.reason, and then you go to response JSON for the response your error had, and then I'm getting the message. So that's why, that's how you kind of get what you reject with is here on the jQuery XHR object. Just talked through that pretty fast. Any other questions about that? Okay. I think it's pretty cool. This is the kind of tricky part that people, I think, will have to wrap their heads around. It's basically a compute. It has the power of a compute to kind of realize what observables has been called and recall itself whenever those change. But you get past the previous value. So you can just choose to return the previous value and just make modifications to the previous value instead of changing the value wholesale. Cool. Anything else, Matt?
Features? Can view adder, can view tag.
Can view adder, can view tag. Oh yeah, that had been talked about previously, but basically we exposed can views low-level hooks for for kind of saying, hey, give me a callback whenever this attribute is found or this tag is found. So if you wanted to make your own component-like thing, you could, or can view or your own custom can value or can event bindings. You can kind of do whatever you want now, which is cool.
The only other one is can route map.
Oh yeah, that one is also cool. So that basically, Brian worked on that. I'll actually let Brian describe it because I have another meeting to go to in 4 minutes. But
before we do that, I have a question for probably you, Justin. The syntax where you pass properties into a component through the attributes that we changed to use single or double brackets now. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
I was playing with that last night, and I could be wrong because maybe it's just not merged into minor yet. But shouldn't that mean that we don't have to use the ampersand, the ampersand for defining that property in the component anymore?
Yes, if you're using stash.
Work anymore? Or I think that doesn't work yet. Unless I was using the wrong. Unless it wasn't pulled or something.
What do you mean it's not?
But what I'm saying is that I noticed that you could pass in attributes via the new syntax with single or double brackets, but then I still had to use the ampersand to make.
No, that shouldn't. There's a test for that. I'll look into it, but when I implemented that, I made a test for explicitly all the different matrices of component or can mustache versus can stash versus wrapping with nothing. You should be wrapping with anything, right, Brian?
Well, no, you wrap it with a single bracket.
No, you don't wrap it with anything if you just want the value to be passed.
No. If you want the value to be passed.
What No, the value of the string, the attribute value.
If you wanted to do value.
Hold on, to be explicit about this. So let me open an HTML page. If I had a component and I wanted to pass the string, I want to pass on its scope, I wanted its foo property to be bar, I would do this.
That's if you just wanted the string bar. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. What I'm saying is, okay, yeah. Then maybe what I'm saying doesn't make any sense. So if you pass it in with,
If you do that, it's going to try to look at bar in the scope.
yeah, and that should work already.
That should work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you do this, it'll actually read now bar in the scope, but then get the string value and then pass that foo. Like
Okay.
this and this are actually the same thing if bar is going to be a string.
Bar is going to be a string.
Yes. Because this is going to write bar to the actual attribute foo,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's going to just then look up, oh, foo is the string, whatever bar was. If bar was Ted, bar foo would equal Ted. That's the same thing that would happen if this. It just happens, it works by a different mechanism.
Okay.
But this would work if bar looked up was an object. Foo would point to that object.
Yeah.
But I really have to go out.
All right.
Bye.
So CanRoute map is that new feature is a way to bind the internal map of CanRoute to an app state can map that you create, and then coupled with define, there's some kind of extensive docs that I can't show right now, but basically there's coupled with define, it makes it easy to kind of create a global app state object that has virtual properties that serialize, that represent other properties that are arrays or other kind of non-easily serializable properties. So I'm planning on kind of doing a better write-up of this in a guide or something for maybe a patch release. But for now, CanRoute map has like an extensive docs page that goes over this.
It's also worth noting that there's documentation improvements that will be rolling out with 2.1. There's a whole new recipes, which has a little bit better of a flow to it. There's going to be a new plugins guide that explains like how to create a plugin and how to like share it with the community. And then we also did the Doco documentation improvements. So like all major user-facing APIs are going to have like really nice.
Too. Sorry.
And yeah. Can you explain that? I'm not familiar with what that is. I can't really explain it.
It's Dash is an app you can install that collects all the documentation from larger projects, and we with 2.1 can generate a doc set that you can import into it. And it integrates with like Sublime Text and Atom and WebStorm and Alfred, a lot of macOS tools.
Is it like a third-party service? That's what I was thinking again. Wrong. I thought there was like a Dash set website or something, and they hosted these. Is that not right?
I think it's an app you download.
But they do have like you can browse their repository of stuff to approve.
So let me screen share it. I can show it. If we can find it, there it is. So here you have different documentations, and then you can just browse through classes and properties and methods, and you can add new ones. And I don't remember how to do that. So you can add new ones, and now with what we're generating for 2.1, you can just import CanJS as a doc set. So it's been asked for a couple of times, I think, so people are excited about it. And I think Andrew and Eli did a good job. I think that's it from what I can think of.
Cool. So it sounds like we're going to roll this out on Saturday or something?
Well, I'm thinking we might want to do a pre-release today and then roll it out officially Monday?
There's actually a pre-release already out off of the minor branch. So it is 2.10 pre,
Okay,
which
cool.
is as of last night. So if we want to do another pre-release like after a merge,
Well, I don't know how you made. Sorry, Alexa, I don't know how you made the pre-release, but basically what I think we want to do is merge it into master and update like the homepage to show 2.1 pre.
No, I don't know that we should. We got a lot of flack the last time we did this for 2.0 pre on the homepage. I think for the homepage, CanJS.com, we should keep it as the official release. So when 2.1.0 drops officially, that's when we should update the homepage. And we should just make the pre-release available for developers who want to peek ahead, like me.
Okay.
But I'm not opposed if we want to do another pre-release, like a pre-.2 or something, after we merge into master. I think that's a good idea too.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the plan. Anything else? Questions?
There are a lot of new people who contributed to 2.1. I don't have a list of their names, but we should probably call them out in the article or in our changelog or something like that. A lot of first-time contributors, which is pretty cool to see. So big thanks to all of those people.
Awesome.
Perfect. Okay. I think that's it for today. It wasn't too long. Thanks for stopping by. And we're going to do this again next week.
Bye, guys.